you literally will lose the confidence of the people who believe in you.
Yep.
And if you're smart enough, you know that you need people
You
who
have to
believe
have
in
people.
you in order for you to do anything big in this world.
Start when we stop, we gon' get it done. Get it when we start, we gon' get it done. Start when we stop, we gon' get it done. Anthony's World.
Woo! What's going on, everyone? I'm Anthony. You know me as Anthony's World. We're back on the LivingIcon Podcast. Today, we're going political. We're going real political. But we're actually going to go the business side of politics, which I like business. You like business. We all like money. We like money. We live by money. We love the money. But today, we have Antonio Valdovinos.
That's right.
Hey, I did it right. Once again, I'm going to have to read the paper because if I don't, I'm going to get yelled at and get in trouble. So, Excuse me while I read the paper.
No worries.
He is a highly acclaimed political consultant and dual-party field firm expert with 10 years in politics. He is the founder and CEO of La Machine. La Machine?
Right,
Yeah. La Machine Consulting. That's actually a badass name. La Machine. I'm learning Spanish. The Machine? Is that what this stands for?
Yes,
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Top ranked in Arizona and nationwide, Tony has worked anywhere from local state campaigns to presidential campaigns and is here to talk about why politics is all a business.
Cool.
We knew it was rigged from the beginning. It's all a fucking business, isn't it? Everything's a business.
Everything's a business.
It's not rigged though, is it?
Absolutely not. No, not
Or
in
can you
this-
just not say
Not
that?
in this country. I don't think so.
It's not rigged?
No, not in this country.
But it is a business.
I think people got to eat. So definitely
It's all business. It's all about the money.
Yeah.
Go where the money is. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I love this. How did you get into politics? What was the first?
I started volunteering about 12 years ago. I was part of a city council race to elect the first Latino to represent a 67% Latino district. So I was a really big believer in representation. So I volunteered for over 3 years. That first year, I met a lot of leaders that inspired me, and we won that first race. So it was a big experience for me to feel victory and see the change that, there's a quote that says, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yep.
And I got to experience it. So I was immediately, I believed in continuously doing it. And that was 12 years ago. So I've been doing it for around 12 years now.
That's epic. I love that. How old were you when you first started?
I was 21 years old.
21. So
Yeah.
you're 33 now.
33 right now,
33.
yep.
Hey, I know we got almost the same birthday. So
That's right.
we got that Gemini blood
Geminis,
running through
yeah.
us. So I'm assuming that, being a Gemini, you could probably work with both parties. You know what I mean? You have two sides of you. You probably got the
I do
the
mostly
nice.
nonpartisan work. I have a big progressive portfolio, but I do nonpartisan work when it comes to do with like school funds or referendums, ballot initiatives. I did cannabis, which I was a big believer in, making sure it was legalized.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of work that I have mostly in my portfolio.
Love that. So this is an entrepreneur podcast. We
Yeah.
talk about money.
Definitely.
Tell me where the money is.
Gotcha.
Where's the money in this? Where's the money?
For me, it never was about the money when I first started. I started my company about 8 years ago. Didn't really see a lot of significant, what you would call profits, until I really started getting my portfolio expanded. I have an 87% win record in my portfolio for my clients.
Ouch.
So I get selected for the hard fights. And sometimes I don't even join the situation, the election. But for me, mostly when it comes to the money, it's making sure that we can pay our folks right. We're one of the only firms that was paying people $30 an hour this last cycle. And that's where, for me, the money comes in. Is like we got to make sure that we can properly finance an operation for it to be successful, and for anybody who's participating and being part of those workforces to be compensated properly for that work. And so for me, it took me a while to honestly understand the money side of the work, the business. But I 2 years ago was joined by my younger brother, Adrian Valdovinos. He's not my CFO. And so his whole job is the money.
To make sure that
his whole
you're good
job
with the money, you're
that's
smart
right.
with it. I love that, yeah.
And so that's what really made the biggest difference for the firm is once we really added that position. I started off small by myself, grew my team little by little, had to shut down every year after the elections, but now we hold a 6-person permanent team after every election cycle. And so we're always battle ready for anything that comes our way.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were born in Mexico?
I was born in Colima, Mexico. That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I can't even pronounce that.
Yeah.
What? So where at is? I love Mexico.
It is
love
exactly
Mexico.
west of Mexico City on the coast. So it's a coastal city. Yeah.
I gotta do the whole never eat sour worms. You know,
Yeah.
no, never eat
So you
sour
go
worms.
south, then you go all the way west. You hit the coast. That's Colima. So it's a big port city. A lot
Love it.
of industry goes through there, through the port sides. But at 2 years old, my mother decided she wanted to come and fight for the American dream. She had already worked in California doing some textile work, and she brought us over. And Arizona's been my home ever since 1990, 1992.
Awesome. So you've been here pretty much your.
My entire life, yeah.
You love it here? You like it here?
I love it here.
Yeah.
I love it here. I have hopes and dreams to expand into New York for my work. I've been back and forth to New York, so I think the next pathway for me is to be on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But I've lived here and worked here my entire life.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You go back to Mexico a lot or not?
I
really?
don't know.
No?
No, I don't.
Dude, I love Mexico, man.
Yeah,
we
it's
should go to
beautiful.
Mexico. We can get the Gemini partying over there.
That'd
We
be
go hit
fun.
some parties over there.
That'd be fun.
So having that experience, how did that shape and mold you as a person? Because it probably puts a chip on your shoulder.
What part?
Like just being born in Mexico, then being brought over here. That's a lot for someone
me,
young to go through.
It was I don't remember the journey. I was 2 years old. I was a toddler. But my entire life, I've been very, very happy and very proud to be an American. I mean, I just remember pledging allegiance to the flag when I was in Head Start. That was a really big emotional experience, right? We all stand up.
Yep.
It's very formal. We pledge, put our hand on our heart. And that carried me through grade school. So for me, I always loved speaking Spanish. My mom was really big about making sure we spoke the language. We didn't lose the language.
You speak Spanish?
Absolutely, I speak
Like
Spanish fluently. Yeah.
I need to learn.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We could be doing this podcast in
Yeah,
Spanish.
no, it's
so
a
I'd
big
learn.
economic thing too.
I know bread and butter.
Yeah,
That's
most
about all I know. And pan
Most
con
definitely.
mantequilla.
Pan y tequila. That's
Yeah. I know cerveza.
Okay, there
Uno
we
más
go.
cerveza.
Yeah.
Tequila, por favor.
That's all you need,
Yeah,
yeah.
I survive in Mexico when I go. I just
Good,
drink.
good.
I find the bars.
Oh, they know what you need.
Oh yeah, they love it.
They love it,
I
yeah.
love it. That's awesome. So in your journey, like it's a little more not traditional when it comes to entrepreneur or when it comes
Right.
to work. Did you have any like jobs or experiences that would put you into this that led you to this? I know you volunteered, but what were you doing to have
For
live?
me, I think as an entrepreneur, the biggest entrepreneur I watched growing up was my father. My father raised all four of his boys. I'm the second one through construction. And so for me, I watched a lot of his leadership just by being his right-hand man. I was not very skilled, but I was very tough. For me, I did a lot of the heavy lifting. I did a lot of the demolition, cleanup work. I was just very loyal to my father and growing up and knowing he needed help physically. And so for me, I was there for him growing up. By the time I was 12 years old, I was already on the construction sites, handling jackhammers, handling sledgehammers. Like I was
Awesome.
really excited to do that kind of work, but then it just became tough, right? Like you work through the summer, you work through the weekends, but I was very loyal to my father, so I recognized that for him it was about leadership. That a lot of the times at the sites, some of the guys would give up, right? They'd be like, hey, this is too hard, and my dad always had the leadership idea of, hey, we're gonna get this done. And so for me, that's the first experience I had as watching an entrepreneur. Is like this guy had a mission, and it was to finish the job. And he always finished the job. And so that was my very first lesson in entrepreneurship.
I love that, and
Yeah.
it just shows hard work. Like
Absolutely.
I was the same with my dad. My
Yeah.
dad owned his own business, and it was like in the automotive industry,
gotcha,
and
yeah,
like
definitely.
tinting windows, working on cars and stuff.
Right.
I was 8-9 years old working on cars.
Oh, I love
So
that.
it was really cool.
Definitely.
And it taught me like hard work prevails.
No, most definitely.
Hard fucking work. Like
Most
you put the
definitely.
work in every day when you can, how you can, all the time, and it prevails. Like it does.
100%. No, I built every ounce of character I had. By the time I joined politics, it was easy to do that work than it was to do the work that I was coming from. And that was an entire childhood experience for me, being a laborer in the construction field when it was booming. I mean, I graduated high school in 2008 when the economy really tanked. But, by the time I was 12, an able-bodied, 10 years old, I was handling hoses,
Love that.
equipment,
Yeah.
you name it, we were hauling it and doing the work.
So like when you what made you really like get into that side, like the business side of the politics?
Yeah.
What was that? Did you want to be more in control of it because you saw things that you could fix and how you could do things, or like what was it really the driving factor behind that?
When I first started volunteering in 2011, I recognized how there was a significant amount of inefficiencies in running an electoral effort. And as a person who had skin in the game and understood the stakes in representation, I rose in leadership significantly because I was very good at bringing results. I just remember my first time going out there. I registered about 10 people to vote. Some of the other kids at the time were registering 1, 0, 3. And so I recognized immediately that because I spoke Spanish and because I was personable, I was very good at the work. And I had just a lot of courage, a lot of guts. And so for me, it was easy to go door to door and talk a message and ask for, people to vote for our guy. Than it was for a lot of people. And I recognized that there was a lot of college-educated students, not to knock on them, but they were very timid, very calculated. And for me, I came from an environment that was about results. And so for me, I came back with results no matter what day it was.
Put numbers on the board.
Exactly. For me, it was about putting numbers on the board. We had a goal to win the election. And so it is about numbers. It's about votes. It's about doors. It's about contacts, percentages.
I love that.
And targeting, right? And so for me, I became a huge student of that battle. I just remember looking at my first electoral map, and I just fell in love with it because I was like, oh my God, like we have to conquer this, right? Like this is a precinct map. Like we have to take every block to win this election, and you only need 51% of the vote to win an election. So for me, I just had this big passion of being successful at anything we did. And like I said, I came from an environment that success was mandatory. Like there's no way you can go home and call it a day. The job had to be finished. There's no hourly rates in construction. It's you can get the job done, invoice, and that's how you make your money. And you lose money with the gasoline, with the travel, all that stuff, material. And so I understood that watching my father. But by the time I was in politics, I realized how inefficient some of the technology was as well. And so I, for the first 3 years, was part of successful campaigns. We elected the first Latino. We elected the first woman to represent my neighborhood. I helped elect a Marine into office, which was very important to me. In my 4th year, I got selected to run a congressional effort, which was a dream of mine. 3 years before, I could only imagine running a 100 by 100 mile district. And I started off at city council districts, much smaller, but very hefty. And so for me, I designed a plan to mobilize a team and voters, and we were successful. Apart with everybody else's skill and talent that was part of the leadership, I had a leadership role. And so that's what started me as an entrepreneur, is that I made a decision that I wanted to do it in multiple ways, and I wanted to, run a program the way I wish I could run a program, and in the ways that I had experienced very low effort in the technology. And so I started my company, La Machine. And the reason I call it La Machine is that I had a friend of mine who was like, man, you guys are like a machine out there. And so to a testament to him, we called it La Machine. And it's stuck ever since. But that was my journey. For me, it was about looking at inefficiencies and recognizing that you have to have leadership and technology and effort and workforce to legitimately make something happen where you need 20,000 people to cast a vote your way. And it started from there. I started my company in 2015, and we've been rocking and rolling for 8 years now. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Now, I do have a question. Did you have like something like confidence booster? Like, because I mean, it's almost sales when you knock on that door. Did you have something you'd say? Like there's a door right here. You knock on it. What was that? What was that? What would you say? It's as soon as that door opens, you have to have the guts to perform, because somebody just opened the door for you. And I respected that, because when I first started in politics, we go by a contact rate. You knock on 100 doors, you're lucky if you get 30% of those answered. Mm-hmm. And so it's a huge mathematical equation to talk to an entire district, to mobilize it, to, move the needle your way, for people to support you. And I really believe that people needed to be spoken to. And so for me, the confidence was courage, right? As soon as that door opens, no matter what language or how old the person was or what ethnicity they were coming from, I had to legitimately get straight to the point, not waste their time, not fluff anything up, and just straight up communicate, hand the paper over, make the ask, lock in the data, move on. And so for me, it was not a confidence, but I was always scared and nervous, to tell you the truth. I mean, I worked in some rough neighborhoods, but I came from a rough neighborhood. So for me, I knew we were serving people, and I spoke Spanish. So that was a big help for me too, is that I could switch gears, talk to somebody in Spanish, which they were more comfortable in understanding the information. And I got my message across. I got the result. I remember putting up yard signs for our candidate. That was the confidence boost for me, is like when they said, yes, I'll vote for your guy, or yes, I'll vote for the woman you're talking about. That was where the confidence came from. But when I knock on the door, it's straight courage, because if that door opens, I got to perform. And at that point, there's no hesitation. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're talking about.
Love that. So I heard you say that you thought a lot of the technologies and all that was behind it. That's why you wanted
Definitely.
to. So I'm in trading. I'm in the tech side of things. I'm in the tech business. I'm a very big believer in blockchain.
Oh, gotcha.
Do you foresee that in the future coming, or?
I'm not necessarily familiar with blockchain. Are you talking about implementing that like in politics?
Yeah, because I know like talking about like implementing a lot of that stuff in that, like, because the blockchain technology is like, it's like undisputable. Like it's like you can't change it, you can't alter it. Like it's faster, it's the cheapest technology there is.
Gotcha.
So for like actually casting votes, like I think using the blockchain technology, because it's peer to peer, it's fastest, it's simultaneous, instantly.
I think for communication purposes, digital has gone a long way, especially with geocoding, like where you can, place a significant amount of ads in a geographically locked area. Because if you're running for U.S. Senate or president, it's everything. But if you're running for Congress, city council, mayor, school board, it's all maps, right? Like they're all geographically they have a boundary. And so I think when I mentioned technology, we used to go out there with clipboards.
Yeah.
And, my team now goes out with iPads. And that was one of my pet peeves growing through the industry. Is like, why are we spending all this time printing, filling it out and then entering it, when we can use all that time to continue talking to the voters? And so I was one of the first ones that had an all digital team. And then when we created the firm, we were all digital from the first day.
Do you think that helps in your win rate, because
Absolutely.
You're using your time better?
Most definitely. 100%.
Time more wisely?
Yeah.
Because I've noticed, like, the government kind of uses their time very leisurely.
Right.
And they're very 20 years ago.
Definitely.
Like,
definitely. Yeah. A lot to do with security reasons on the government side. On the electoral side, I think it just was, playing traditional ball. And for when I got into politics, I really believed in the representation and what was at stake, for people with policy, immigration. And so for me, it was just like winning was just very, very important. And any edge we had was just critical. And like I said, when I joined, there was a lot of inefficiencies. Like I remember when I used to volunteer for the party, we used to recruit to data entry. I'm like, holy crap, like, why are we recruiting to enter data when we can literally recruit to talk to voters? And so there was this saying that if you're not talking to a voter, you're doing something wrong. Well, we were doing a lot of not talking to voters back in the day. And so that's where my energy really came in, making sure that every dollar professionally that came into the operation was legitimately impacting voter contact.
Yeah, that's epic.
Yeah.
Do you have any crazy stories? Like you gotta have some crazy stories.
Stories.
I know you probably can't name a politician or something like that, but even knocking on a door, any crazy, I like crazy stories. This is just for entertainment, personal stories.
No, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
You really don't have any crazy stories?
I think we've had close calls. I think the craziest thing is being successful at it. I mean, I remember in 2014, I was running my mentor's election, and the craziest thing is that we won by double digits when we were literally ranked as the underdog in the race. We were running against an opponent that had 30 plus years of name recognition, which is pretty impossible to beat. But through mobilization and door knocking and mail and digital efforts and fundraising, we were able to take that victory at 13%, which that for me was the crazy part.
That's awesome.
And I think when it comes to politics, it is almost very impossible to be very successful at it, and I've always been good at picking my clients and and people I support, but ultimately the pathway to victory is super against you, right? The odds are against you. And so for me, I think the craziest part that I'm very humbly and gracefully respect is that victory margin through all of that effort. You know, there was a saying like flip every stone. You got to do that in politics. Yeah. And for me, that's been the craziest part, is like when you actually look at the election results and you're winning, there's no greater feeling, because you just spent 9 consecutive months, you know, legitimately 8 in the morning to 8 in the afternoon, giving it everything you possibly can. Like, we only stop when it's too early to talk to voters or it's too late to talk to voters. And most people don't got that kind of grit in them. And that's what I think, you know, I did very well in my firm, is that somebody hires me, I'm going to give it that exact effort I've given it my entire career.
So when it comes to this, like, because it's got to be kind of weird, like having a client and you get so close to them, and then when it's over, like, it's just kind of done.
Definitely.
Like, isn't that like kind of a weird feeling? Like,
like,
all right, we're done, bye.
Yeah,
like,
no, most definitely. You know, I've made some incredible friends, but I think the most valuable thing I've gotten out of this experience is mentorship. I was able to start my company through one of the local unions that I participated with. They believed in my work. They gave me a grant. I was able to just start my company and spend 6 months looking for a job, for a contract. And that's what started it. But for me, it was mentorship on leadership, on victory, on perseverance. That was the biggest thing that I've gotten out of this. It just out of growing up with adversity and limited opportunities through education or finance. By the time I got involved in politics, I really believed that anything was possible. And I never imagined being an entrepreneur. You know, I've been on Forbes, I've been on CNN, I've been on NPR. I never imagined growing up as a construction laborer that I was going to have a platform or a voice. And a couple of years ago, I had an incredible opportunity to make my life story into a musical that made it to Off-Broadway in New York. You know, Lin-Manuel Miranda showed up to watch it. We had President Obama stop by, had a 30-minute conversation with me on stage, which was incredible. But the most valuable thing for me has been mentorship in this experience.
That's awesome. So you made a statement before we got on the podcast about those losses, lessons.
Definitely.
You learn a lot.
Definitely.
Do you learn more from the losses and the wins?
I think so.
What's your biggest lesson then?
I think, you know, when you lose in an election, you have to dissect it backwards, you know, because for me, as somebody who boxed growing up, you know, in a combative way, I grew up in an environment where I had to fight, you know, your currency in life when we all didn't have any was, do you got the wits? You know, can you back up yourself? I grew up in that environment, which I think was toxic, but ultimately, by the time I got into politics, I realized how do I say this? How tamed life can be, right? Like, it's professional, right? You're battling each other, but you're doing it as professional as possible. And for me, losing an election taught me so much about picking the right person to support and where their work ethic was. And most importantly, to understand deeply the environment we're getting ourselves into. I've been very successful in Arizona. I've gone out to Chicago. I've done work in Virginia. I did work in Georgia this last year. And for me, I've done very well in Arizona, but, you know, anytime we've taken a project outside of Arizona, it's super freaking challenging.
It's probably, you don't know the landscape.
Right,
you don't know everything,
the landscape. And so that's where the losses for me really taught me a lot, is like, be an extreme student of the environment and the client, because both of those, you know, you need those both to complement your work, because your work cannot carry the candidate through, cannot fundraise the money. We don't fundraise. We take funds to mobilize for capacity, but ultimately the losses for me taught me significantly to be very, very, very selective of who I'm going to be working with.
How long after you started your business did it take you to become really, like, you know, profitable? To, like,
I think about 5 years.
5 years?
I've been doing it for 8 years professionally, 12 years in total. But I started my LLC when I was 24. 25, and I'm 33 now. So it took me a very long time to understand the industry. But
How to
when I
make
was
money
great,
too,
yeah,
I'm
how
sure.
to handle the money. Most importantly, I mean, you know, I'm good at the work. I was very good at the work, and I had a lot of effort. But then I realized once you become an entrepreneur, there's so much more to it,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do you sustain a company? How do you, you know, do payroll? How do you,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you
yeah,
name it.
I
And-
know.
And that was my journey. Is that you know, I did very well for years in my success rate, but as a business, it took me a long time to run a company and understand how to run a company. And then my team grew when I started taking larger work.
Comes easier, doesn't it?
And it became much easier because I no longer was handling 5 components.